Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we're going to talk about a very important topic that is also a very touchy topic as well. We have a wonderful guest here, A.G. Ali, and he is the director and producer of a film called Walking While Black, Love is the Answer. He's a he's a veteran, U.S. Air Force service, disabled veteran. He is the founder of Love is the Answer, where they do workshops and workshops specifically that break stereotypes and bridge the gap between law enforcement and the community. As I said, a touchy subject now more than ever in the U.S. And I'm sure in other parts of the world you can appreciate this as well. The separation, right, between community and the dissension that has been going on. There's a book he's got coming out in September of 2019, and something very important that's happening in September, which is on September the 17th, is the inaugural National Day of Reconciliation here in the U.S. So he'll tell us a little bit more about that. But AG, I'm just really excited to have you here. Welcome to Leaders Transformation.
Hey, thanks so much, Nicole. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, you know what? And thank you for taking on this initiative, because I know some people might think, hey, we got to do something here, but not me. and you're really taking this head on, which is really awesome. Shout out. Also, I wanted to do a shout out to Evan Money, who Evan is a good friend of mine, friend of yours, and he connected us and said, oh my goodness, you've got to have AJ on your podcast. He's definitely a leader of transformation. I'm getting so many guest requests, and now I'm having to be very selective because I honestly just don't have the time, which is a really good problem to have. It means that there's so many people doing really cool things in the world. But when somebody comes to me and says, no, this person you want to talk to, you're going to want to have them on your show, then I, of course, listen to that. And so Evan's always giving me some great guests. So thank you to him. Also, thank you to the listeners and viewers, if you're watching this on video, for being here, because you're the reason why we do this. We want to inspire you to be the difference maker and the world changer that you're capable of being. Or if you're already in motion, you're already doing some things to make some really cool impact in your community or the world at large, we want to be able to re-inspire you, to let you know that you're not out there slaying dragons on your own, changing the world, bringing love to the world on your own. There's a lot of people doing some really cool things. Afterwards, we'd love to hear your story. You can go on leadersoftransformation.com. You can find us on social media. You can, of course, reach out to me directly through those channels or post and share what you're up to. But also afterwards, we'd really appreciate if you'd leave a rating and review. I sometimes forget to ask, but you know what? It really does make a difference. We have listeners in over 120 countries. And if we can take this message of love is the answer and take it to more countries and more people, we can have a wider impact, and that's what our goal is here. So we appreciate your help in doing that. All right, AJ. So tell us about the film and Walking While Black, and about this movement that you didn't just put out a film, but you've now actually you're fueling a movement through it.
Yeah, I got to start out by echoing your shout out to Evan Money, because he's such an incredible guy who's been a complete inspiration to me. I have trouble saying his name normally. Normally, I got to say it like Evan Money. So
that's the way he introduces himself. Yes.
Right.
For those who are going, what?
It's catchy. It's catchy. So Evan, he's one of those folks who really lives out the principles of love is the answer. And when I made the film, it wasn't just because I wanted to make another film. It was because I had been profiled in Howard County, Maryland, by police just walking down the street in my own community. And one officer turned into 3, and 10 minutes turned into an hour. And it was a time that was very scary, a time that I was very lucky to have gotten out of there unharmed. I think there were bad intentions displayed on their part that morning. And fortunately, I was able to get out of there okay. Wrote an article about it that was read by thousands of people all over the country. And then the ball got rolling to want to tell more, to dive in more, because at that time, as you know, on television in news broadcasts, there were at that time things like Trayvon Martin's death, and then we've had so much Sandra Bland and Freddie Gray and so many others that have been in the news. But this phenomenon of bad relationship between police and people of color, and specifically police and black people, has been going on for a long, long, long time. It just hasn't been reported on like it is now. So this reality that everyone else is just now being exposed to, black people have been living their entire lives. So,
yeah, and actually to that point, you know, for those that are listening, they're saying, I've never experienced that, I don't get it.
yeah.
Just talk a little bit about, before you go any further, I have a friend of mine, Torian Scott, and who I also met through Evan. And Torian was saying how when he was growing up, he said, you know, white people, you just don't get it. I mean, when we're growing up, we're taught how to interact with police so that we don't get hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and don't look at them a certain way, you know, don't do certain things. And that is completely foreign. People can say, well, I understand. No, you don't. Unless you've been in that experience, in that situation, you don't really understand. So, you know, maybe just for a second talk about that, and then we can talk about the film and how that's, so that we create a context for people that are saying, because I'm hoping that the people that hear this are not just people that are in the black community. I'm hoping that we're going to have people of all colors, walks, races, you know, that are going to be listening to this. And so to set a context for them of this experience that they may not have any frame of reference for.
Well, the reality is that black people don't need to hear this story. You know,
Yeah. They
because
know it, they live it.
they know it. Yeah. So when I talk to groups, when I go to screenings, when we have anything to do with the film, I love it for it to be a multicultural audience or primarily white audience, because this is new to a lot of people. You know, there's a lot of talk these days about white privilege, you know, and what does that mean? Well, it means certain things, like you don't have to have the talk with your kids about how do you act when you get stopped by the police. And so if you're white in America, you can choose to engage on matters of race if you want to or not. If you're black in America, race is an everyday thing. It comes into play every single day. And so we have to be literate in another language, almost the language of race as it relates to this culture. It's such a just a powerfully oppressive thing that black people just can't get away from. You know, James Baldwin said at one time to be black in America and to be even remotely awake is to be in a constant state of rage. You know, and I don't want to live in a space of anger and rage and fear and frustration. So I try very hard to focus on these love principles in my life, and I think sometimes it is almost impossible to do that when you turn on the news and you see that someone has been shot 70 times for reaching for their wallet after the police told them to get their ID, things like that that happen. It's just unconscionable. I believe that most police in America are good people. I believe that most of them sign up to be police, to do the right thing, to serve their community. But I also believe that they serve in a broken system. There's two sides to this coin, right? Some people say the system is broken. Some people say that the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Think about that for a second.
Yeah.
And so if it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, to oppress a certain group of people, then it's working just fine. And there are people who don't want to see that change.
Yeah.
Private prison system, for example. You know, and I could go on and on. You know, but I'm here to try to shine a different light on this whole subject, to a different light, meaning I'm not going at it from the standpoint of let's dismantle the police departments, because that's never going to happen. We need the police. We already have laws in place to protect people, so I don't think even changing laws is going to do much, because if people's hearts aren't in the right place, they're going to find a way around the laws, right?
Yeah.
So I'm really focused on, okay, how can we transform hearts? How can we change minds? How can we get people to have empathy? How can we get people to see the other person's side of the story, to walk in their shoes? And that's why I'm so happy to be on with you today, because that's what we need to talk about, is those transformative moments in the heart, and those things that can break down those barriers, whatever it is, not just police and Black people, but anytime there's a divide between people, love is always the answer. Always, 100% of the time.
Yeah, you can't legislate kindness. You can't, it's funny, I put on Facebook recently, you can't legislate wisdom. Well, that goes for kindness, love. You can't legislate these things. More law isn't the answer.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Awesome. And I ask people too, when we're in schools, I ask people, okay, how many classes, I'm talking middle school, high school, college, whatever level, how many classes have you had about love? How many classes have you taken for a semester teaching you about love, how to love yourself, how to love other people? And I think maybe one person in the whole country has raised their hand saying, I have, but they didn't learn it in school. They learned it in Sunday school. Right. And so if we spend all this time, years in school, and we never learn how to love. So if we don't get it in school, if we don't get it at home, where do we get it? Right?
Well, then you learn it at church, and then unfortunately, as I was also talking to the guest just prior to you, Rob Eastman, and he was in the church, and then he's seeing the hypocrisy of we're about love, we're not living it, but we're saying it, and so then you have that too. So then there's a lot of confusion around this subject of what love is.
Yeah. So in the film, we break it down with some of the folks who are in it, like Andrew Collins and Jamel McGee. Just real quickly, Andrew Collins was a police officer, and he's white, no longer a cop, but when he was a cop, he framed Jamel McGee on a drug charge. Jamel he didn't do anything. And Jamel went to prison, sentenced to 10 years. And after he served about 4.5 years, it was found out that Andrew lied, and Jamel was released. Andrew got sent to prison. And so years later, when they're both finally out, they run into each other in their same small town of Benton Harbor, Michigan. And some things happen, the result of which Jamel forgave Andrew. And then they started to work together, and now they're doing ministry together all over the country. And these guys, they're like brothers. So it's like beyond best friends. Like they have a true love for each other, and they're now teaching other people these simple principles, of how to. I mean, look, if somebody framed me and sent me to prison, and I spent 4.5 years in prison because of a lie, it would take a whole lot. It would take every ounce of my energy to reach deep down and pull that love out, right? Yeah. To forgive and then work with that person. But that's what they're doing. It's truly amazing. And I believe if they can reconcile, there's hope for all of us, who most of us are, dealing with petty stuff we comment on Facebook or whatever, and then we set somebody off, and then all of a sudden we're in an argument and people are making threats. And I mean, life's too short for all this stuff. So
yeah,
so with the film and with the work that we're doing with the movement, it really comes down to, okay, these 4 simple principles: learn about the other person, open your heart to their needs, volunteer yourself to be part of the solution in their life, and then empower others to do the same. L.O.V.E.
Nice. So, when I watched that film, that was so powerful to watch the interaction between Andrew and Jamel. And to see that is just, there's a love that goes beyond what our energy and what we can do. So it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So, so you were profiled, and you said, and you had produced films before and so forth. So you're like, hey, we need to do a film about this. What has been the reception that you've gotten in the community, in the Black community, in the white community,
Yeah, it's
law enforcement, about this? Because, a lot of people talk about it and they can
yeah,
complain about it. And that's, sit on social media or whatever and say, how can you, or talk around your, circles and say, hey, this shouldn't be this way. There's a whole other thing to be able to say, this is going to be my life's work.
right. Right. I've been blown away by the response. Now, people have to get past the title first. Walking While Black. Love is the answer. Subtitle. Right. So sometimes police will see the title and they'll say, oh, I don't want anything to do with that because that's cop bashing. And then I simply say, well, okay, let's look at the title together. Walking While Black. Love is the answer. What part of the title of the film is cop bashing?
Mm.
And I just sit back and let them answer, right?
Yeah.
And what winds up happening is that ultimately they see that their unconscious or conscious bias towards blackness comes out.
Mm.
Because the only thing in there, walking, has never offended anyone. To my knowledge, right? Love has never offended anyone, to my knowledge. Answer, but the word black can set someone off,
Yeah.
and cause them to tune out and get pissed off and just don't want to deal with it, right? So when someone says that to me, then I know we got work to do. We got to have a conversation, and I try to do it from the perspective of a best friend or a family member. Because there's in many instances, there's many layers of wall that have been built up, many years, maybe sometimes decades of training from family members, from the media, from others, that's telling them that black is bad. Right?
Mm. And on the flip side, I can also see it's well, good luck to you is never going to change.
Yeah, we get that a lot. Yeah, we get, God bless you. Yeah, bless your heart. we get that a lot. Good luck with that. Yeah, but we're here to do the work, and I'm looking at this from at least a 20-year perspective. I'm 55 now. Hopefully, God will keep me around for another 20 or 30 or 40 years. No matter what films or TV shows I'm working on, I'm always going to be focused on this issue. It's always been a part of my life, but I formalized it with this film that came out in 2017 and our workshops, Love is the Answer workshops, where we're going deep with people for a full day or 2 days or even 3-day long retreats, where we're peeling away the layers of that onion and in hopes of getting people to understand themselves and the people around them in a totally different way. Howard County, Maryland, where all this started, I got to say that there's a happy ending. It's not an ending. It's still, the journey still continues, right? But Congressman Elijah Cummings took notice of this film and hosted a screening in Howard County, Maryland. And there's a major there, Major Luther Jansen, who's just about to retire pretty soon. He came to the screening at the request of the congressman. And he sat down on the panel next to me after the screening. And when it was his turn to speak, which he was the first speaker, he literally put his head between his knees, and I thought he was going to lose it. He raised back up with tears in his eyes, and he told the audience of 450 people, including the congressman, that he had prepared a rebuttal to this film for an entire week. A rebuttal to a film he had not yet seen.
Wow.
And he said with tears in his eyes to that audience, I got to throw those notes away because this film just changed my life. And since then, we've been working together and they've been working with the Howard County NAACP as well, the same group that initially put me together with Luther right after I experienced what I experienced in Howard County. And Luther has guided the police department through the process of getting a lifetime license to use the film in their training. And they're doing some things in the community that they weren't doing before. There's a new police chief there that's doing an outstanding job. She used to be the head of their human resources. So we got a black female chief in Howard County that's turning things around. And Luther took the big step of saying, you know what? Yeah, we were wrong, and we're going to use your film to help make things right. So that's a pretty cool thing that happened there. And there's a lot of work to be done still, but we're seeing that kind of thing happening all over the country.
So what do you, in these films, in these workshops, when you bring them together, you watch the film, you discuss it afterwards. What are some of the kinds of things that you do to start bridging the gap from a conceptual, wow, there's an issue here, to how do we actually do this, and how do we change these profiles? And that goes on both sides. So it's community and law enforcement. You're not making law enforcement wrong. You're actually saying is it takes two to tango. And so how do we, obviously law enforcement has a certain stereotype which fosters it, but how do you, it takes both parties to then bring healing too.
Yeah, it really does. And I oftentimes when I'm talking with Black people about this issue, we have a lot of pain, around this issue. And so the question is, do we reach out? Do we extend an olive branch one more time? Yet another time, are we the ones that have to say, hey, why can't we all just get along? Yeah. Right? And we all know who said those words, right? Rodney King, after he was beaten nearly to death in Los Angeles, which sparked the great riot in 1992, right? So do we reach out? Do we continue to extend that olive branch? Absolutely. We have to. We have to, because the other side of that coin is destructive. It's continuing to keep things headed down the wrong path, right? So no matter how many times we have to extend that olive branch, I think we have to. And so to get groups in a room, Black people, white people, Black cops, white cops, brown and all other colors in a room to deal with this kind of issue, we diffuse things at the very beginning. Okay, think about what's your favorite vacation spot, the place that would bring you the most joy. Most people are going to say someplace like Hawaii, right? Yeah. So we gave it a Hawaiian theme. And the first thing we do when they come up to register is we greet them like their family, which is ohana in Hawaiian. Ohana is a term for family and extended family. It could be your neighbor, right? So if there's a 12-year-old boy who lives next door, I might call him my nephew, even though we're not related. Ohana. So we greet them with the spirit of ohana. We put a lei around their neck. We give them a warm embrace, and we say, we're so glad you're here. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Aloha, and then we go in and we carry that theme throughout the whole day, where, yes, we watch the film and it's tough for some people to watch. And then we have the frank discussion about all the things that are wrong, right? And then we work through those issues the entire day by focusing on the solutions, not ignoring the problems, but looking at those problems from a lens of how can we solve it? How can we make it better? And let's not be afraid to roll up the sleeves and do the work. And 9 times out of 10, what it comes down to is relationships. People just aren't forming the relationships that are deep and true. Those kinds of relationships where we can be honest with each other, where you can tell me something that might be the most ridiculous thing in the world, but I'm not going to bash you over it. I'm going to talk it through with you, right? And vice versa, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm not going to attack you for your views or your feelings. But I'm going to work through those things with you. Take the time, like I would with my favorite family member, because I want what's best for that other person. So we spend a full day or 2 days or 3 days going through those things. And there are tears and there's laughter and there's every emotion you can think of. And at the end of the day, we got people walking out of there that at the beginning, they didn't want to have anything to do with each other. And after that, they're saying, you know, let's keep this going. And we're
So how do
encouraged.
you get those people, how do you get them in the room? I mean, the police, law enforcement, you know, you can get somebody, you know, to say, okay, you're all coming to this workshop, but community, how do you get them in the room?
We tell them this is your chance to tell the police what you think about
Okay.
them in a safe space where they can't do anything to you. And what happens when they get there is that they, you know, the third of the day or halfway through the day, they realize after they've had a couple of breaks, had lunch with them and talked with them and worked through some things, realize, oh, this person is just like me, just wears a uniform to work. You know, that's simplifying some of it, right? Because
Yeah.
we know that there are certain folks who should not have a uniform on, should be doing an entirely different job. They should not have that ability to take someone's life,
Yeah.
right? Just because they feared for their life. So there are people, and police acknowledge this too, that there are people that shouldn't be in a uniform. And I believe that in most cases, they're trying to weed those folks out. Maybe they didn't do that before, but they're starting to do that now. We are starting to see some changes taking place and more accountability.
That's awesome.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, something's got to change. There's, you know, and people can argue and say, oh, it's only the certain stories that we hear and we don't hear all the good stories. That is true, but those stories are still happening. I'm from Canada, so coming down to the US, I was actually quite surprised. So I came from Toronto. It's a melting pot of, you know, different cultures and so forth. And, you know, my best friend growing up was my neighbor who was from her parents were from Barbados, St. Vincent. So, you know, I just hung out. We're all, to me, we're all the same, you know. And then I come to the U.S. I've been down to the U.S. a lot. There's one thing to travel to the U.S. and it's another thing to live in the U.S. And when I moved to L.A. and had the experience of being in actually moved into an area that I was the minority and saying, oh, this is different. And in the way that people kind of look at you skeptical. And then I started to feel, you know, I started to see this dissension and hear about this dissension and through my friends, hear what the experiences are. I'm like, wow, this is intense. The experience is not like being in Toronto. I'm sure it goes on in Toronto, but not to the extent that right now it's happening in the U.S. And as much as, you know, we want it to improve, we can say that it's improving, but there's a lot of work to be done here. So,
Yeah.
So you have this film, you're doing this on September 17th. You've got this National Day of Reconciliation. Your goal is to have, I mean, not just, it's not going to stop at September. That's the starting point of this, but to, you know, to have a whole bunch of places film this, to screen this film and get people in. Tell us about that, what you're doing with that and who you're reaching out to. Maybe there will be some people that are going to listen because this is going to come out in August. So, you know, maybe there's some people that can participate, have it screened where they are. So tell us a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome day. So the National Day of Reconciliation, our goal is to get 500 churches, schools, community groups, and other places to show the film at the exact same time, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern. And our goal is to have 100,000 people altogether. It's an average of 200 per place. That would be a reset button, you know, a moment where the nation, hopefully in all 50 states, can come together in their local community see the film, and then have the discussion together, and then talk about next steps and form action plans. We're encouraging people to actually build gardens together, organic children's learning gardens, where,
Wow.
where they go and see that film that day, they have the discussion, and then they pledge to do something together like build a garden, so they can keep that conversation going. Because you can't build and maintain a garden and have the fruit and vegetables come up overnight. That's not an hour-long discussion, right? That's days and weeks and months of building into each other as your hands are in the soil. And so we're saying, why organic children's learning gardens? Because children need that, right? They need to learn those skills. Organic is healthy, right? But the other thing is the idea that a police officer and a member of the community can come together side by side, digging in the dirt, planting tomatoes, right? And then a couple months later, see those tomatoes coming up, and then picking them off the vine, and sharing. Think about the stories they'll share in the meantime. And then think about
Yeah.
all the things that those adults and even college and high school students working in that garden can then pass along to middle school students and elementary school students, right? Think about the 70-year-olds and 80-year-olds and 90-year-olds who have all this wisdom, all this experience, and we're not relating to them. We're not communing with them. We're just kind of casting them aside because their time has passed, right? Well, what if they were there in that garden, contributing their wisdom, their stories, right? Decades of experience, helping us to become better. And now we're from 2 to 102, a community, one family, working together to make each other better, experiencing that love together. That's what I want to see happen.
What a metaphor for community itself, right?
Yeah.
Nurturing and building. That's a great idea. I love it because you're not just talking about it. It's like you found a way to, how do we translate that into something physical that they can touch, they can feel, that they can experience, that keeps it going. I love that. It's really, really cool.
And I see it happening. I mean, we have a neighbor who has had a garden plot in Santa Monica for years, and it's hard as heck to get on the list, and it takes 5 to 10 years to get a garden. Well, she's traveling a lot, so she put us on with her. So we started gardening with her, my wife and I, and we're meeting all these folks that we didn't know that are in the neighborhood, and building these relationships. And we get the greatest joy when a green pepper is ready to harvest, or a cucumber or a tomato. And it's for me to go out over there a couple times a week, just for 15 minutes to an hour, just pruning and digging in the dirt. It's like a therapy session. Sometimes it's like a vacation, so we're experiencing it ourselves, and we know.
Getting out into nature too. I mean, there's that aspect of it. I mean, getting kids, but just in people in general, to get back to nature, to connect with it. Oh my goodness, there's so much in that. That it's just really, really great idea. So what are some steps that how can people, so we've got the film, we'll make sure all of these links, of course, are in the show notes. So we've got the film, they can watch the film. It's available now.
Yep.
They can rent it, they can buy it, they can join the movement. You have a link, trylovenow.com. The film is walkingwhileblack.com. As I said, to rent the film, we'll make sure that's in the show notes. You also have your National Day of Reconciliation, Love is the Answer movement.com. You've got that. So, but if somebody's listening to this and saying, hey, you know what? Yeah, I don't have a church, I don't have a school, I don't have a community that, or organization where we can screen this film. I can watch it myself. What can they do to start getting involved in this process?
Oh, that's easy. Just invite. Actually, that's step 2. First, just watch the film and see how it moves you. right?
Okay.
And you can watch it right on your phone. You know, just go there and download it from there. Step two is maybe you might want to invite some people over to your house for lunch or dinner. You know, there was a great film, Sidney Poitier, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, right?
Mm,
So we've created this little thing, this little Guess Who's Coming to Dinner program, where we're encouraging people to invite their neighbors, especially the ones who don't look like them, and invite someone from the police department, not to come in uniform, but just to
great
come
idea. Yeah.
dressed like everyone else, right? And don't say they're a cop at the beginning, but have dinner, watch the movie, and over dessert and coffee, have a discussion about the film. You know, by then everybody's gotten to know each other a little bit, right? And then maybe halfway through that, the peace officer can reveal that he or she is a cop, you know. But get into that kind of environment where it's a safe space. It's in someone's home, you're having fun, you're having the discussion, you're meeting some neighbors. That's an easy thing for most people to do.
That's brilliant. Yeah, because sometimes people think that they have to do this big thing to make a
Yeah,
difference,
right.
and that we miss what's right around us
Yeah,
right here. So I love that. I love that. And of course, yeah, if somebody has an organization and they've got a few hundred people or a few thousand people and they want to bring them together, that's great too. And they can
yeah.
reach out to you. But this is so, yeah, so grassroots. I love it. Well, AJ, thank you so much. I mean, what else can I say other than I just think this is an amazing, amazing initiative. You've got a lot of courage and fortitude to be able to, to be willing to take it on and to see it through. And I appreciate the fact that you said, I've got a 20-year vision with this. This isn't tomorrow, next week. Martin Luther King didn't say, okay, I'm hoping this is going to happen by next year. And if it doesn't, I'm going to go on and do something else. It's like I have a dream, and that dream is I'm going to continue that, and somebody else will continue it off after I'm gone to continue this journey. And also what you said there about, to put that olive branch out. Um, some being white, not all of us even recognize, some do, some are part of the problem. I get it. But then there's others that don't even, it's just not what their experience, it's not our
Right.
experience. It's
Yeah.
like I said, for me, from Canada, I'm like, I don't know, are we all not all in the same family? I mean, the bottom line is I look at it and say, we're all human beings. So we are all related, at some
Yeah.
level, right? Like, so we're all
Yeah.
human beings. So to me, that's kind of always been my premise. And so not deciding who is what, and creating that separation. So, but it's so for the people that don't even realize this is an issue or have heard about it, but then don't understand how it relates to them or how they can get involved or even how they're perpetuating the problem by their unawareness. I think this is just such a really, really great, great thing that you're doing. But so thank you. Anyways, all
Oh,
that to be said is to say
thank,
thank you for doing
thank
this.
you. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on and having this kind of discussion. Because I think forget about the whole cops and black people thing for a second.
Yeah.
Just look at where we are. As a nation right now, we need more civility. We need more just people taking the time to allow people to mess up. And help them get up, brush the dirt off of them, and be there to show them a different way.
Yeah.
I'm not, there are folks who just, until the day they die, they're going to hate someone who looks different than them. I know that. We're not going to turn everyone around, right? But for most people, if we take the time to have decent, honest, loving discussions with them, we're going to find that common ground. We're going to find those things that make us more alike than we are different. And all I'm asking people to do is just try that. Just try love now. We've tried everything else. Just take a step back, put the cell phone down, take a deep breath, and try these love principles in your life and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, we all ultimately want to love and be loved.
Yeah.
Everybody around the world.
Yeah.
The destructive people. I mean, ultimately, there's hurting people hurt people, And as Lucas Mack said, I just recently interviewed him, and he said, and heal people, heal people.
Mm.
And so let's focus on the heal, get the healing ourselves, help other people heal, and we can make a change. And like you said, it's love. Love is the answer. Love is, when it comes right down to it, love is the answer. Light casts out dark, love casts out fear. And so, when it really comes down to it, that's the essence of the message right there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I appreciate that. So that's really awesome. So for those of you that are listening, watching, take some of this, some of these ideas. Maybe it is buying the film, watching it yourself, inviting some people over, having a dinner, bringing people together into your home, having like it's like a microcosm of this, movement in your own community. Or maybe you have an organization and you're saying, you know what, we've got people from all walks of life in our business. We've got, in our church or whatever, in our community, to come together, rally together, and to be part of this National Day of Reconciliation. It's not going to happen if everybody just says, well, somebody else will take care of it. We need to do it. And actually, like for me, I was sharing with AG and saying, here's this church or that church, or what about this place, or what about that? So not just what can I do, but who do I know that I can get this message out? And if we all do that, we could create a ripple effect, a huge ripple effect in this country, but also in the world, in doing that and supporting this initiative. So I encourage you to do that. At the very least, start looking at people differently. Start looking at them as not somebody different, somebody, that is a foe. Start looking at them as a friend. Seek to understand whoever they are. If they're different, young, old, black, white, whatever their background, socioeconomic background, this, idea of seeking to understand and building that bridge. If we all do that, man, it'll be a much better place for all of us to live in my opinion. Yeah. So we'll all be a lot happier. But with that, I encourage you to go on leadersoftransformation.com. We'll make sure all the show notes are there, so you can reach out to AG. You can find the film, rent it, all that. And again, we'd love to hear your stories, how this has impacted you. If you've got questions about it, feel free to reach out to us and leave us a rating review. Really appreciate it. So thank you again for being here, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.